Hi everyone, and welcome to Enlightened Conversations. I haven't done one in a little while, because we've had some things going on, but I'm super excited to be talking to Lisa Fitzpatrick this afternoon. Don't even know what time it is at the moment. Lisa is a certified coach, a keynote speaker, best-selling author, yoga teacher, workshop facilitator, physiotherapist, and of course a mother. She's the go-to coach for high-achieving spiritual entrepreneurial women who want to find their soul purpose, gain greater visibility and share their message with a wider audience. She loves supporting women to grow both their online and offline presence. She believes that when women tap into their feminine wisdom, the feminine shift restores balance and equality and helps to heal our very troubled world. So Lisa, I first met you last year in August, and that was at the Entrepreneurial Conference and Awards that were held at Crown Casino. And wow, what a weekend that was. And I just want to let everyone know that the very first workshop that I attended was one of Lisa's. And wow, it was mind-blowing. It was only for, I can't even remember exactly how long it was for. It was probably half an hour, 40 minutes or something like that. I was one of the people that got chosen to stand up, and I won one of her books, which was awesome. Straight away, just the energy that you were putting out into that room and everything you said, the way you stood, just absolutely everything just resonated with me on such a strong level. And I said, I need to talk more to Lisa at some point. We tried to over that weekend, but, being so busy, it was a little bit difficult. So I'm glad that we've got this opportunity now to have a little bit of a chat and we can share, what we talk about with everyone else. So is that with speaking in workshops, particularly your... Whoops, we lost you.
I'm back.
What you do in conjunction with Osmum and how you came about speaking at that conference. How did that...
Yeah, that came about, Christie, through the most wonderful gesture of a friend who nominated me for a business award with Osmum. And I resonated so much with that organisation's message about how important our journey of motherhood is to the business process. Because let's face it, as mothers, we are so we're multitasking experts, right? And so the following year, I was determined to become one of their mentors because, that message of being able to balance motherhood and business, it's a very distinct journey for us mums, as you know. And
Absolutely.
and the other way that the conference came about for me, actually speaking at the conference, was that I was asked to present on something that was really dear and true to my heart, which was basically how to have a presence in business without really pushing into our masculine. So, I feel so strongly we're all capable of magnetizing business to us without going down that old world paradigm of just so burning ourselves out and pushing. And so that felt like a really passionate message that I wanted to share at that workshop.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is something that we all feel, and no doubt everyone in that room felt, even the people that didn't manage to make your workshop, because it was there were other workshops going on at the time. So it was hard for a lot of people to say, okay, do we go to this one or this one, because everyone's got so much wisdom to share. But it's just the whole balancing things out. And I have found that that recently, the more I actually have a habit of, and I found through going through your book and your guide, Healing the Heart of Your Business, that I work mostly from a feminine perspective, more of that masculine, if I want to grow, things like, being firm with people and learning to say no and having more of that control over what's going on rather than just relying on emotion and passion, which is wonderful, and that's how it all started and how it's continued. But can you perhaps share a little bit more about how, because I know there's probably a lot of women that will be watching this who do run their own businesses from home, especially spiritual practices, of how, if you might be lacking that masculinity when running a business, of how you can tap into that?
Oh, such a great question. Isn't it fascinating, because a lot of the greater world is stuck in that masculine pragmatic paradigm, but those of us who are sensitive, who are very heart-centered, who tend to come from intuition a lot, we don't we struggle against those structures. And I understand that from a personal point of view as well as a professional one, and I think that's why we're kindreds, Christie, because we get that as spiritual women, sometimes the idea of backing ourselves into schedules and business plans and the pragmatics can be really quite stifling. However, one of the biggest keys, I think, for me, which has supported my business growth, is understanding that the discipline around scheduling my time and finding the masculine balance in my business provides me with the freedom to be creative in ways that I couldn't be if I hadn't implemented those pragmatic systems and structures. So to me, that's been the key, is understanding that actually having the masculine and energetic balance there has given me so much expansiveness in my ability to create money, to expand my reach, to really touch people's lives in a much bigger way than I could if I didn't pay attention to structure. So so speaking from experience, I think if we welcome the masculine structures in, and I think the paradox here is that so many of us have been burnt by the patriarchal system. A lot of us left corporate jobs or really high yielding, high pressure situations to start our businesses because we just don't do 9 to 5, right? It's just not us to be stuck in that box and to be stuck in peak hour traffic and to live that life is our idea of hell, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
and we're almost unemployable, but sometimes that carries with it this legacy of rebelling against the very things that will support us to have freedom in business. And I think sometimes there's an adjustment period that we take where we can turn our back on the patriarchal structures, and we can really see them as a negative, or we can reframe them as being something that is such a support to us. And I love thinking about my business being like a really good husband. It feels right when I think that my business wants to caretake me and my sons, and it wants to have the ability to take care of me. So it needs to have it's almost like we have a relationship with one another that is very similar to a partnership or a marriage. And I know when I'm not in a good relationship with my business, it doesn't want to treat me as well.
Yeah, that's quite profound what you've just said there, and I'm so going to write that down, because that's, as you can probably tell from my energy when we first got on here, and I was a little bit scattered before this meeting because time frames and working out financials and business plans and all that sort of stuff, it is very overwhelming. I guess and you've already been through this, but this is something I'm going through right now, is that my business is expanding very quickly, and while it's so rewarding and I love what I do, it is very overwhelming, because then I think, okay, now I have to start stepping into the masculinity and taking on board those sorts of things. Otherwise, it's not going to keep growing. I can't just continue on purely love and passion and intuition. At some point, I want it to grow, and I do want it to, like you said, to have a relationship so it can support my family and all of that, as well as the people that I've got working with me, because they're part of it too. Then that's something that has to happen. And it's quite intimidating to think that.
I hear you.
At this point, from a personal perspective, I have been quite overwhelmed in the last couple of weeks, because that's happening right now. Do you have any suggestions, if in case someone else is going through a similar thing, of how to manage that?
Yeah, absolutely. The interesting thing that you said earlier is that your business couldn't run on love alone, you know, and that love needed the network of systems and pragmatics behind it. And as you go into this expansive phase, I hear the pain, you know, I hear the suffering, and I also hear that that's the path of transformation that our businesses always want to take us on. Is it's almost like squeezing us through the birth canal, because and when I hear that from you, I get so excited because I understand that you're having what I call the breakdown before the breakthrough, where any major transformation comes with this degree of teething problems or birthing issues. And I think if we go through it enough times, which we will at every level of our growth, and you would have also gone through this on a personal level prior to having a business, I'm sure, and that we see it as a necessary part of the cycle of business, and that when we reach the transformation on the other side of that breakdown, the level of expansiveness that you become on the other side is just so incredibly important for you to fulfill your potential and your destiny, that this will all be worth it for you in retrospect. And I think that we're always in this society looking at a very short-term angle on things. You know, we're kind of in a bit of a throwaway society at the moment, where we say, unless this comes with an immediate type of reward, I don't feel like I'm necessarily on track. But the whole reason I wrote my book was about the fact that when we're in soul purpose work, we're not necessarily finding the red carpet rolling out for us. We're not necessarily always having this synchronicity of events that line up to make life suddenly magically easy and abundant.
No, that's not right, is it?
It's not quite how business works and how life works on the I think I love to use the analogy of the heroine's journey here, where in order to bring the fullness of your spiritual gifts to your work, and I see you as an incredibly powerful spiritual intuitive healer. And what I saw at the Osmum conference was certainly mirrored in you, Christie, because your energy was amazing. You intuitively knew you had to take photos of me, which I needed that day because I had no other record of speaking at the conference. So, I mean, you understand these gifts have been cultivated through, you know, the sacred promise you made in this life to fulfill this promise that you're now fulfilling. And that on the heroine's journey, we sometimes have to go into that descent of what I call the descent of Inanna, where we have to go down into some of the darker places within ourselves, and we have to go to the overwhelm, to the shadow side, to the place that doesn't think it can cope with it all. And that's where we start to almost create some magic with our tools that we use. And then when we come back for air and we come back to that the other side of the expansion process, you've suddenly been sculpted and changed into that woman that actually can be the beacon to others who are being squeezed through that tight hole as well. You know what I'm saying there? So see yourself. I think that's so exciting.
It is. And look, I know even when you get to the points of, and I'm sure Michelle, even, you know, many people who are similar to us who have a spiritual practice or anything related to that you get so excited and so engrossed in everything, and you just think, yes, this feels right, and getting up every morning and doing what you're doing that's 100% this is what you're meant to be doing. Mm-hmm. You know, you come across roadblocks, like finances is a big one.
Yes, massive.
Right now, things to help the business grow. And I'll sit there and, you know, kind of go, I don't know how I'm going to do this. But then at the same time, my gut is saying, no, but I know it's going to be fine. You know, that's the difference, I guess, between letting yourself become absolutely overwhelmed and just going, nah, it's not meant to be, or it's too hard. But when you know in your gut, no, it's going to work because it has to, because this is what I'm meant to be doing. And it all comes eventually and it all happens. But like you said, you need to surrender sometimes and go, okay, well, I just need to look at it from a completely different perspective and to go deeper sometimes, even though it might be, well, most of the time it's quite uncomfortable.
I love that you just said that. I love that you said that because the first instinct we all have when we face that pain is to run or distract ourselves from it, right? Yeah. And we think, oh no, this shouldn't be happening. I'm meant to be in my purpose here. I'm meant to be living this purposeful situation. How awful that I'm not finding this as easy as it should be. And then when we sit there and we stare the dragon down, you know, and we realize that actually that roadblock's there because our whole purpose for being in this business is for our own spiritual growth and our own better understanding, then we have a chance of making a big abundance leap or a big leap in our reach somehow. And I think sometimes we can stay in stasis in business because it's a comfortable place for us to just be breaking even or making ends meet, or we can really trick ourselves into thinking that it's okay for us to stay where we are when like you said, sitting with that discomfort and understanding what it means to actually face it allows you to then go to that next step. I believe benevolence is watching us, and it's watching us to see whether we're ready to face the next level, you know, and I love that saying, new level, new devil, because it's never going to go away.
But that's okay. That's I don't see that as scary. I see that as exciting because, for instance, the Osmum Awards, you know, when I first got nominated for that, and you may have felt the same, I thought, what, me? No, I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm not this, I'm not that. But then the second I engaged, you know, walked into that room and started speaking with everyone and saw what it was actually about, because it's not about, a bunch of business women with their noses up in the air going, I make, you know, absolutely opposite. It's a room full of hundreds of women who are just building each other up. And for me to stand up even in that workshop with you and speak, I don't even know why I did it. That's not something that I would usually do. It's, you know, public speaking, and me even doing this now. Asked me a few years ago, absolutely no way. In that room and speak in your workshop was massive for me. But it didn't feel, when I did it, it didn't feel, it felt natural. So again, when something's uncomfortable, and that's what I'm kind of getting at, is that when you're really nervous and you're going, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this. That's where, like you said, that's where the magic happens, is when you step out of that comfort zone for a little bit or feel awkward or uncomfortable. That's when you realise who you are, I think, anyway.
I agree. I couldn't agree with you more. And that's a gift that we're constantly being given, is this ability to either face our fears and coming to what you were saying before, that my business can't run on love alone. Well, we both know, you know, it's that love that we have for what we do that will conquer all of those issues in the end. And that's where I think faith comes in, because I really believe faith depends on us not seeing the outcome. And I think one of the biggest issues we face with the way the business has been done in the past is that that patriarchal approach to understanding what the 10-year goals look like and the 5-year goals look like really stop us from being in the fullness of our presence in this moment in time. But when we have faith, we know that, you know, all of the business planning in the world may even be superseded by benevolence's plan for us. And often the outcome can look so different to what our mission statement might have, you know, looked like. And that's actually what I think I love the most about business, is that we can expect the unexpected, and we can often expect the outcomes to be even better than what we planned. So letting go of that old way of just planning everything to the T, and feeling like we're so in control of it all. I'm a big fan of surrender and faith. Faith are creating the bridges that we need to cross.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And I've found, you know, I'm yet to finish my business plan. It's something I'm working on.
Yes.
But those sorts of things, you know, KPIs and, like you said, looking. Mum and I did a 10-year vision board. It was after.
Nice.
It was when we went to the initial session for the women's business school that Osmum run, and a 10-year vision board. And this year alone, what are we in? End of April. I think it got to March, and we looked up at it on the wall and went, check, check, check. Oh, wow, we need to change this. You know, so you can control all you like, you plan all you like, but it's always going to change. You know, this is, my vision board keeps changing every couple of months, because either we mark things off that are done already, or you know, after a month or even after a few days and go, oh, well, I don't want that anymore. You know, my shift has changed, you know, I've shifted and now I'm aiming higher, or the direction is completely different, you know. And I love that about these types of businesses, is what you and I do, is that it's always going to change, you know, month to month, year to year, decade to decade. I don't believe that it's meant to stay the same anyway.
Yes, yes. How exciting for you, doing vision boards with your mother.
Yeah, it is.
That is really, really exciting, that you have a lineage of women in your family that are passing, you know, the gift has been passed through your family. And I think there's something beautiful about that you have this baton being passed to you. Wow.
Oh, it's just it's beautiful. I get to work with my mum every single day, and you know, we have got another couple of team members on board now. We've got one of our authors who has joined the team, or two of our authors. One is my brother-in-law. But being able to, I think the reason why it works so well is because we can be absolutely comfortable with one another and always speak truthfully. You know, if we're in conflict or something like that, we know that we're not going to hold it against each other.
Yeah.
Or that we're going to get into some sort of massive conflict. It's just kind of, blah, I don't like this, or no, we need to do it this way, or we can get heated or whatever. But in the end, we're all in it for exactly the same reason, and that's what matters.
I remember your mum saying that she felt she learnt a lot from you as well, and that, you know, in some ways you exchange, it sounded like there are times when you exchange roles where you're the mother and she's the daughter, and vice versa. And that's a beautiful symbiosis there that you have. And I love the fact that you're midwifing these incredible books that people have been dreaming about writing for their whole life, and you're really a midwife to their soul purpose realization as writers.
That.
I'm so inspired by that, Christie. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. So I remember you did speak a little bit about, and I know you probably can't show us, or maybe you can, from sitting down, but one thing that stood out to me when you were speaking at that conference is about the use of your body in business. Able to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So prior to opening my coaching business, I taught physiology in yoga schools, and I'm a physiotherapist by trade. So actually being in the body and understanding the physiology of excellence is a really important part of my coaching work nowadays as well. And when we have command and when we're fully present in our bodies, I believe we exude a degree of influence, or an energetic dynamic that allows us to really have a strong message with whatever our business is, or whatever service we want to give to the world. When we have command over our physiology, the way that it actually supports our message can be so profound. And we all know those people who, when they walk into a room or when they speak to us, we listen because there's something compelling about the way that they hold themselves, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, so what I touched on in the workshop, and what I do on a what I recommend on a practical level, is that we look at those people who have a command over their physiology, and we see that a lot of people who are successful in the way that they either speak publicly or market their business, if they're a personality business, they have common traits. And one of those traits is that they hold symmetry in their body, and they don't allow themselves to actually fly around with a whole lot of extraneous movement, which will distract from a message. Exactly. There's always a time and a place for some hand gestures, depending on your cultural background. Yeah. But certainly having a sense that we're controlling our energy so that our energy is being delivered through the message itself, I think, is the key to a good physiology. But I think too, a lot of us will resonate with certain types of people. We tend to like the people who are like us. So and there's nothing more, I think there's nothing more endearing than when we are able to really hear and see that someone's speaking from their heart. So one of those physiological qualities that that can really support a connection is actually making sure that we're open in the front of our body. Because as you know, when we shut down in the front of our bodies, or when we are asymmetrical and we turn away from the person we're actually addressing, rather than sort of creating connection, it does the opposite of that. It disconnects us from that other person. So I could talk for hours about that, Christie, because I love the physiology of excellence. Is something that I find absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, look,
there's also some there's some stats around it too. Like, we only really hear 30% of someone's language, and the rest, 70% of what we perceive as meaning comes from someone's body language.
Okay.
So,
wow.
That was really interesting.
Look, that's probably why I felt that energy when you were up on the stage, because it was your presence. It wasn't, I don't think you'd even spoken yet. But when honestly, you hadn't. It was just the energy of the room was calm, and I just felt comfortable straight away. There's a room full of people, and you hadn't really said much already. And I felt that, but felt comfortable. Like you said, that I could relate to you, and even though I know nothing about physiology and all that sort of stuff, but you could tell straight away that what you were about to say was coming absolutely from the heart, and that it was genuine. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No worries.
Yeah. I always remember that was probably one of the biggest gifts my yoga teacher gave me, was this understanding that we can set the tone of the brainwave state that we have our audience in. So when we're in a calm alpha brainwave state, that sets a vibrational tone for the whole room, and that everyone that comes into that room can then calibrate to that alpha brainwave state. And generally speaking, society's rushing around in the beta brainwave state, which is a high stress state, and it's not a receptive state either. So people won't actually hear what you have to say unless their breathing slows down and their brainwave slows down enough for them to be in a whole brain learning space. So as a facilitator, but supporting calm and supporting that relaxation response in the body is a way of making sure that your message actually lasts and lands in the memory banks of that person. And, I think we all know too the power of an emotionally moving story as well, that when we go into our emotional state, it tends to be a more right brain space, which is also an intuitive space. And that is also where we have a more alpha brainwave state of learning as well. So I love the speakers that I remember the most are the ones that have those moving stories behind what they do, and take you on a journey with them rather than a whole heap of facts. Yeah.
Well, that's true, because as soon as you hear someone's personal story, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be, something massive that they're sharing with you, or just a little tidbit, but it helps you to relate to them, rather than on I'm in the audience and you're up on stage, more of a equal and you're just like me. It's more of a human type connection. Okay, well, we're just the same, you and I, and you're sharing your wisdom. That's how I see it.
Yes. Yeah. And you wouldn't be in that room listening if you didn't already have some connection to the message or a kindredship with that person. Just purely by choosing that workshop, you're showing a solidarity with the energetic behind that workshop as well. And I love that we all choose each other for this work.
It does happen so naturally though, doesn't it?
It does happen naturally if we stay, I think if we stay in our hearts and we stay open. And I'll always remember one of the Osmompreneur, the lady, one of the ladies who was in the end final, the final 10, the top 10 Osmompreneurs, she had an amazing story of how her swimwear business was struggling in Australia to take off. And she went to this like a trade show somewhere in the city, and it was expensive to set up her stall, but she thought it was worthwhile. And her dad had said to her, as long as you're always open and you stay kind, you'll do well in business. And she said she wasn't quite sure, whether that would ever pay off, that advice. And she was walking down, she was walking at the trade show, and she saw this Japanese man who was lost, and she thought, well, I could be open and kind to this man, or I could just run to the ladies, which is where I need to go. She made the decision to be open and kind. Yeah. And she asked him she said, you look a bit lost. And he said, yeah, well, I'd be happy to have a hand here. I'm lost and I need to find this conference area. And she took the trouble to show him. And he said, well, I want to know what you do. What do you do? And she said, I make this swimwear for kids. And it has her swimwear is great because it has these inbuilt hats to the swimwear. So when babies try and pull their hats off, they're always connected to the swimwear. So it's an ingenious idea. And it turned out that this man was a billionaire investor who got her swimwear throughout Japan, and that if she hadn't stayed open and kind in that moment, and if she hadn't been present and she'd been thinking ahead to getting to the ladies and her own needs and blah, 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 it just never would have happened, this opportunity in her business. And how amazing that we can open a portal like that can change everything just by being present and being in our hearts. I think that's so amazing.
And that's where, from my experience, that's how everything has come about, by you probably know, I don't know if you know, but my business initially started with my sister-in-law, and we started out by because as well as doing the publishing, I do spiritual guidance and healing, and I offer readings and things like that, and that's where most of our audience is. But that Facebook page started purely as a tool so that we could share our spiritual journey with other people. It was never intended for business. It was never intended to be somewhere we would sell products or services or anything like that. It was just from a place that we could share with other like-minded people what we were experiencing and learning as we were learning tarot and opening ourselves up. And then it just grew, so if the intent behind what you're doing is genuine,
yes.
and like you said, you're being kind and you're doing everything for the right reasons, that's where all the opportunities have come from for me. For instance, if someone was to message me and say, I'm struggling right now, what do you suggest? And I just go, you know what, look, I'm happy to have a chat with you and so forth. Without fail, it always turns into something else, whether that person, I know a lot of people at some point I think I did some sort of promotion on the page where I said to other healers and anyone who had a spiritual type business, send me details and I'll share it. I've got 15,000 people on there, so I'm happy. We're supposed to be helping one another as light workers. Yes. And the messages I received from people saying, I can't believe that you're doing that. Aren't you scared that they're going to take your business away from you or that you're sharing other people's work? And I said, why would I? We're all here. To me, it's just common sense. If you're a light worker or a healer, that like the Osmum Awards, you're there to help each other.
Yes.
Is to bring light into the world and happiness and more compassion and all that sort of thing. So why would you try and be in competition with anybody?
I just love that too. I so know why you're a kindred spirit for the fact that that's such an important value of mine, that value of collaboration. And I think one way I've looked at that too, which has been so paradigm shifting for me, is knowing that when I see another light worker or another coach doing well, that it shows me that it's possible for my business to do well, and that if they were struggling, it would put a seed of doubt into my world. So the fact that when we uplift each other and when we support and promote each other, where actually what we focus on expands. So focusing on the success of a business that's like-minded sort of becomes the very needle, the very thing that moves the needle towards our own success, because we suddenly realize that it's possible for our business too. And I think that's something perhaps that thankfully, with more women stepping into business, I feel we're naturally better geared for that, because we were the gatherers in the field. When in hunter-gatherer society, the hunters would go out and be competitive towards who would shoot the animal, but the women would always work alongside each other. And I just think that's so beautiful that we have that natural capacity for being equals and working in circles as well.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true. And one thing that stands out to me while you were saying that, and I absolutely agree, that I know that there may be males watching this who'll go, oh, hang on a minute, because I know several males who are who are light workers and have spiritual practices who are like that also. But what you're getting at though is not so much women, but use the feminine side and that's what people need to tap into business. Is that right?
Absolutely. We all have a feminine and masculine side, and some of us have played to our masculine strengths and our feminine strengths. So I certainly don't want to discern too much between men and women. Sorry, men, I don't mean to have any negatives towards the masculine at all there. But it's more of an energetic that we're tapping into, which matters. We all need our masculine. We all need our pragmatic and left brain logic to guide us, and we all need that to be well balanced with our feminine. And that's a balancing act we're all learning in this new era. I think it's like a theme of our times, isn't it?
And I'm not sure if it was you it probably was that said it, or whether it stood out in something else that I watched maybe, but that businesses nowadays especially in corporate type businesses. I don't know about small businesses, but a lot of the major corporations they're learning about using feminine, tapping into your feminine side in business, because they're starting to see how beneficial it is and how it works much better than just your typical, like you said, KPIs and control and all those factors. So was it you that said it? I don't know. I'm not sure.
Well, I've had an experience of it, because I do some work for a fairly big not-for-profit, and it could be perceived as a corporate entity that has got possibly an old paradigm of operation, but absolutely the organisation's very open to feminine practice and holistic ways of doing things, and I do think there's overall a lot more awareness with the mindfulness shift that we need to stay present. And on top of that, as you know, the stress epidemic is taking out so much work productivity that we're almost being forced really towards the internalized focus rather than that externally driven focus, being able to tap in and say, if I'm not doing okay, then I can't give to everyone around me, so that's going to impact my capacity to serve. And mind you, I live in a navel gazing area, Christie. Byron Bay is very much about there's a lot of navel gazing that happens too, and that internal focus can become too much sometimes. It needs to be balanced with that external masculine focus too. It's fascinating.
It is, and that's why I was saying earlier that I think for quite some time I was focused on, because I loved it, of course, and being a mum and everything like that goes with it, but having so much focus on your intuition and your compassion and your love for what you do, but at some point, if you do want it to grow and expand and to be able to help more people, including then at some point you do need to make sure that feminine energy is balanced with the masculine as well. And that's
I
what
love it, Christie. Yes, I love it. Oh, yeah, and you're learning that, but your awareness is there now, and that's the most important thing, isn't it? That you have an awareness of that, and that's a lot more than what a lot of people have in those expansive phases when it all gets a bit much.
It's probably a massive shame that so many people would get to that point and give up or walk away.
Absolutely.
And then perhaps think, okay, but I need assurance, and I need a concrete plan, and I need security, which is all important, of course, but I'm not so fussed about it, honestly. But a lot of people are, they can't live without having that stability and security, knowing where money's coming from, and, they place a lot of importance on having their own home and all those sorts of things. And it stops a lot of people because they're so scared of not having that concrete plan in place to be able to see 5-10 years into the future. Whereas I would love to be able to know that, yes, this is going to continue and it's going to continue to grow. I already know that regard anyway. I don't need to know how right now.
Yes.
That's why everything is growing, because I just trust that the path that I'm on and what I'm doing, the effect that it's having on people is exactly why I'm in it for what I'm doing, and that it is going to go further. And I just trust that everything else is going to come together at some point.
I love it.
So
I hear you. I hear that trust in you, and I also understand from what I know about you that you have an incredible gift, and that you're absolutely right. And some people would face the challenges and they would give up, which is probably why 90% of businesses do fail at the 2-year mark in this country, or in Australia, I should say. And we are so fortunate that to take a bird's eye view and see that it's a necessary part of us bursting through those limits that we've placed on ourselves, and And hopefully doing something for the tall poppy syndrome in Australia as well, you know, saying it's okay to be successful in this country. It's absolutely fine for a woman to do well, just as well as it's so fine for a man to do well. We are all equals in this, and that's a real that's a really exciting thing that we're coming into around being given these opportunities.
Yes, it is. And then more and more people are doing it. And I've noticed, I've had some conversation with people over the last few months, I guess, where they've said, oh, I can't give up my full-time job, you know, because I need this or that, and I'm not good enough to do this, and, you know, I can't turn this into a business. You know, it's a hobby. And I'm like, yeah, but does it make you happy, and what do you get from it? Would you love to every morning doing what you're doing and only doing what you're doing? And, you know, of course I would. Well, why not? Try it. But so many people are so stuck in what society believes you should be doing.
Yeah.
For example, when I've just noticed we've only got 10 minutes left, so I'll say it quickly. I went on a holiday last February with my mum to Nepal for 2 weeks. I got a lot of criticism for that, not from the people in my business, but from some family and some people that I knew. How dare you leave your children for 2 weeks? And isn't that selfish of you? And, you know, well, they're at home with their father, for one, which really isn't a big deal. That's the other thing, is that you need to make sure that you're taking time for yourself too, because said earlier, how are you supposed to keep giving when you're not giving that back to yourself as well? And
what an amazing example you set for your children of this incredibly adventurous mum and grandmother who could take off like that to this amazing place, and bringing back the magic of Nepal must have been so nurturing and nourishing for your family, Christie. How inspiring. That's absolutely inspiring.
Nepal is life-changing.
Oh, I've always wanted to go there.
You have to go there one day. It's life-changing.
Oh, I bet. I have no doubt. Yeah, wow.
So I'm just mindful of the time, because I don't want to run out. I want to make sure you've got time to let us know a little bit about, before we go, I guess, where people can find you. And
thank you.
Have you got anything else coming up? Anything exciting coming up that you wanted to share, or you can show us your books? Or
Thank you. So I'm at www.lisafitzpatrick.com.au, and I have my book here, Healing the Heart of Your Business, with a beautiful cover made by my favourite artist, Belinda Patton. And this book is available at all major online bookstores. It's especially for you if you're a highly sensitive, heart-centered spiritual woman in a solopreneur or service-based business. And really this book is all about you understanding the four polarities of your business, which are north, south, east and west, and understanding that when those four polarities are in balance, we have a fairly unshakable force to be reckoned with that I think catapults our business to a whole new dimension. So if you're struggling in business right now, this book was written as a love letter to you. My coaching clients all help me inform the practices in the book, and it's been such a pleasure to connect with you, Christie. I really feel so blessed and so lucky that you reached out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And we'll talk again soon, no doubt, because we have lots to share.
We certainly do, yes.